You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into a special episode, a special edition here. It is finally draft week, and the Jets have made a big move. We appreciate you guys tuning in on this Monday night. It's your boy, Pat Lane, as always, with his favorite co-host, Matt St. Jean. Matt, what do you think? Finally, the Jets have finally made the move. It's finally official. And it makes sense. You had to make this move before the draft. You had to.
Yeah, I felt like it wasn't like 100%. Like you could figure it out later, but at that point, you knew the deal wasn't going to be for as many picks.
Right.
Yeah, this has been happening for. I was really hoping for this not to happen, just because it would have been really funny to have all of that drama and then to have the Jets miss out. And also Aaron Rodgers just kind of getting left in the middle there would have been hilarious. But, it's another good quarterback in the AFC East. Things are going to be more difficult for the Patriots next year if Aaron Rodgers is who he has been. I don't know about the odds of that, but life did just get a little bit more difficult.
100%. 100%. At the very least, you see guys like Garrett Wilson who had a fantastic year with garbage at quarterback for the Jets last year, right? And so now at the very least, I don't know how good Aaron Rodgers is going to be, but he's going to be better than Zach Wilson was last year. So, at the very least, you're getting an upgrade. Now, I was in Green Bay this year. The fans were not happy with Aaron Rodgers. They didn't like the crap that he was pulling. They didn't like his play on the field as much. Of course, he won the MVP last year, right? 2 years ago. But it's just the way it is. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I really just – it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. They're the Jets. They're the Jets. They're going to have to screw it up some way, right? Like, they're the Jets.
Well, and this is really a 1-2 year window for them.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to hit it during this window. And I guess the question here is the team good enough? Because for all of the talent on that roster, I'm not even quite sure how good they are. Obviously, the defense is legit. I'm not gonna say anything about that. But the offense is
right.
It's a lot of names. I'm not sure how good the actual guys are. Let me go through the depth chart here real quick. Like Garrett Wilson, very good rookie year. I'm not gonna he's a good player. Allen Lazard, he's a good player. I don't know if I call him anything more than a good player. Is Allen Lazard better than Jacoby Myers? I don't know if I would say so.
Right.
McCole Hardman is a fine role player.
Right.
Corey Davis probably not going to be on the team. Denzel Mims has been talent but nothing. Yeah. There's guys, there's talent, but we have to see it all come together. That requires buy-in from everybody. I'm sure the buy-in's going to be there from now through August, but it doesn't matter if the buy-in's there from now through August. Let's see what happens when the games actually start to matter, and let's see which Aaron Rodgers we get.
Well, and as much as he complains about the media, he's never dealt with the media. He's lived in Green Bay his whole career. He's never really dealt with the media. Now you're talking about you're now on the back page of every single paper in New York City. New York City. We ain't in Kenosha, Wisconsin anymore, sir. Like, you're in New York City, right? And so,
as somebody that lives here currently, it's the media is pretty harsh. They'll jump on you,
right?
And for all we know, he likes his little coded messages, and he likes his Pat McAfee show, and he likes all of that stuff. And it's going to be under a little bit different microscope now. And
100%.
The stakes are higher. The pressure is going to be higher than it's ever been for him. And he's a good player. Like, I'm not. This isn't anything about that, but you need everything to come together. The Jets will be a better team than they were last season.
Right.
Better enough to be a playoff team, better enough to be a Super Bowl contender. That remains to be seen. I'll believe it when I see it because it's the Jets. And the other thing, who's the offensive coordinator they brought in? the old Broncos head coach.
Goodness sake, what the heck's his name?
Right.
The guy, Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Rodgers guy. That's where I
He
say,
worked
like,
with
this is
Rodgers,
your
right?
window right here.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't work with him, you're kind of screwed. And will it work with him? I mean, it's worked with him and Rodgers before, but it also didn't work the last time he was out there. I don't
right.
think it's a sure thing. I think it's not like they didn't give up like years of first round picks for this. So in that sense, it's like pretty cheap for a franchise quarterback, but
Mm.
it has to work. And I'm not sure this team is good enough for it to work.
Well, and that's really what it comes down to, right? You give up, you move back 2 spots, which is really nothing. For being honest, it's
Yeah,
2 spots is
that's
really
nothing.
nothing. You give up pick 42, right? Their second round pick 42. And then you give up, assuming it's going to be your first next year, unless Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and doesn't play half the season, he just has to hit 65% of the snaps in order for it to be a first round pick next year. You assume it's going to be a first round pick next year, but the Jets are saying, we don't care. It's a first round pick and it's next year. Who cares? And so we'll see where that is. And if we can actually compete, then it doesn't make a difference. It's a late first round pick. Who cares? And so even if it's only 2-3 years you get with him, that's well worth it. Well worth it if you're the Jets.
Yes.
But Austin Gale said something perfect today, and I want to pull it up because the way he said it was so perfect. And I just thought he worded it so perfectly today. He said the Packers move up 2 spots in round 1, add a 2023 second rounder, number 42 overall, and a very likely 2024 first to move away from an essentially dead asset. Not an overpay from the Jets, but it's definitely a win for Green Bay. And that's where we're at with Green Bay. Like, we are in this situation with Green Bay where it was untenable. Rodgers was not the starting quarterback. Jordan Love was the starting quarterback. They had already basically announced that Jordan Love was the starting quarterback. And so you were moving on from Rodgers no matter what.
Yeah.
And now you get back, you move up 2 spots, you get back a top 50 pick and a first round pick next year. That's a great trade for the Green Bay Packers. The Patriots walked away from Tom Brady and got zilch. They got a 3rd round pick the next year, right? Because he walked away as a free agent. So when you talk about what you're able to get back, it was a great move by Green Bay to move on from him because you're starting over. You're starting fresh. You're saying, hey, we're going to hit the reset button, whether you agree with it or not. It is what it is. We're going to hit the reset button and go from there. And so great move, I thought, by the Packers. It was the right move by the Jets. Whether it works out or not, we'll see. But it was the right move by the Jets. You are better because of Aaron Rodgers. You have the team right now to compete. Now, again, will the players come through? Will the coaches come through? We don't know any of that stuff. But if you're the GM of the Jets and you're sitting there looking at this team, you're saying, like, now is the time. We don't have a top 5 pick. We can't draft a quarterback. And even if we did, we don't know how he's going to project. Is he going to lead us to a Super Bowl this year? Absolutely not. No rookie's ever played in a Super Bowl ever. So we know that that's not going to happen. So Aaron Rodgers is our best chance at legitimately making a Super Bowl. Now, again, will you be able to get through the Packers, the Chiefs, and the Bills in the AFC? I don't know. Maybe not. But, like, you have to take a shot if you're the Jets. And they did. And so I think for both sides, it was 100% the right move to make.
Yeah. It absolutely was. And this is, I mean, giving up this for those picks for 2 years of a guy who can play at an MVP level is a steal. The flip side is that's what we said to a degree about Russell Wilson to the Broncos last year. Like, we've seen these moves fail before. We've also seen Brady to the Buccaneers work out spectacularly. Just dropped him into a situation like this, and I think there's some overlap there between that situation and what the Jets have now. So the standards are going to be very high. Anytime this Jets team loses a game, he's going to get probably flamed in the media if he has anything to do with it. And we'll see. We will see how it goes. I'm always going to have questions here because the Jets always seem to have things go wrong. And even though this seems like the perfect move, it always seems to end up going poorly. So let's see how it plays out on the field. Aaron Rodgers was not at his best last year, and I know he isn't always the easiest person to work with. So they are better today on paper than they were yesterday.
Yep. Agreed.
And we'll see how it is in his field. The other part of this that I think is notable, Patriots now with the first pick in the draft of any AFC East team, because Packers and Jets swap. They flip-flop right around the Patriots there at 13 and 15. And I think the Jets are interested in some offensive line help. Packers aren't. I'm not exactly sure what the Packers are looking for at this moment, but if the Patriots are looking for an offensive lineman at 14, I think their path just got a little bit easier.
Right. As Dirk Bogold said, until they trade back.
Patriots trade back.
But I think from a Patriots perspective, I think you can look at it and say the Patriots are now the worst team in the AFC East on paper, right? And I think that was, look, as soon as the Aaron Rodgers trade was floated out there, obviously it wasn't official, but for the last month, we didn't necessarily say it. I think on paper, there's no doubt the Patriots are the worst team in the AFC East. Like that's 100% true, I think.
See, I push back on that because I don't think the Dolphins. I'm still not convinced about how good that Dolphins team is, and I'm not convinced on how good Tua is. Like, I know I saw a meme earlier. You know that meme that's like the dragon heads, and they're all serious except for the one that's silly.
Yeah.
It was like Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers and Tua, and then Mac is the silly one. And I was like, are we really putting Tua in that level? Like, he's been productive, no doubt, but he hasn't been able to stay on the field. And I think it's just about everybody that's watched him has said that has a lot more to do with the scheme and the talent around him than what he has done. And that Miami defense has been atrocious, so the offense hasn't even mattered. And it's like, okay, if I had to say that the teams in the AFC East right now, I'd have the Dolphins as the worst one.
Well, and listen, we can argue about that, right, and go back and forth. Fact is, the Patriots have never beaten Tua Tagovailoa, right? So,
that's also true.
Until the Patriots beat him, we can sit here and talk about how he's not good, but they haven't won against him ever. And so, I don't think that stops the Patriots from being third in the division. I don't think it stopped the Patriots from being second in the division. But it's going to take a lot, right? It's going to take the coaching to be significantly better. It's going to take the players and the execution to be significantly better. It's going to take the discipline and the football IQ to be a hell of a lot better than it was last year. So they're going to need to tighten some things up. But it does make the AFC East, I think arguably the best division in football. I mean, it's really, and of course you said that about the AFC West last year, and the AFC West was a disaster. But but you look at now the AFC East and you think Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers against Bill Belichick and, Mike McDaniel, who everyone loves, and Tyreek Hill and all the players that are on that Miami team. And so you just look at the star power alone on the AFC East, and you're thinking man, this is loaded. And what's funny about it is that the Patriots have the least amount of star power by far. I mean, that is not, you can't even argue that one. That's 100% least amount of star power. But I think that ultimately the sum of their parts is greater than the whole of some others, right? Because of the coaching, because of the way they do things here.
And I think to a certain degree, people who aren't in the AFC East or the New England bubble are kind of looking at this last season and going, man, this team is just not that good. And the way I look at it was when we saw the team actually play together with any semblance of an identity.
Yeah,
they were competitive with some really good teams.
Yep.
They just routinely could not get out of their own way, and they went from the worst offensive coordinator in all of football to a guy who was so good at being an offensive coordinator that he's been a head coach at multiple levels and was just an offensive coordinator at Alabama. Bill O'Brien's not some innovative genius as an offensive coordinator, but when it comes to just rock solid fundamentals and coaching young quarterbacks, he's one of the best guys out there.
Right.
So it's all right. That's, you upgraded that spot a ton. And if that lifts the floor on your team, I think it can, this team becomes incredibly competitive and probably looks a lot more like the 2021 team and the 2022 team with maybe some improvements at some places. Let's see how Thursday night goes.
Well, right, and that's the thing, right? I mean, listen, when you make the playoffs and win playoff games with trivia answer quarterbacks, right? They're trivia answer quarterbacks. Who's the worst quarterback to ever win a playoff game? Oh, Texans guy. This is like they're literally trivia answer guys. Now, it didn't work out with Deshaun Watson when he was in Houston. Fine. But some truly terrible quarterbacks that got through with mediocre to above average play with Bill O'Brien as the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator. And so, you have to feel good about that if you're the Patriots. And you feel like the coaching is going to really ratchet up this year as opposed to what it was last year. And so you say, all right, we're okay with that. We think that is going to make us that much better. And then what's going to happen in the draft? What's going to happen? Is Juju going to be a step up from what Jacoby Myers was last year? And is Gesicki going to be a step up from what Jonnu Smith was last year? And then so on and so forth.
If he isn't, then
it's a complete disaster. It's a complete. Literally, I could be a step up from what Jonnu Smith was last year. So, Oh,
yeah. And when it's like Cole Strange, I think should be better next season. Whoever's in that right tackle spot should be better next season. Trent Brown will always be inconsistent, but I think he can be just a little bit better next season. And I expect Mac Jones to be better. And here's the thing: I don't know how good Mac Jones will be. I don't think he'll be as bad as he was last season.
Right. I agree.
And I also think if you want one of the best offenses in football this past season was led by Jared Goff. Nobody thinks of Jared Goff as a franchise quarterback after that. They just schemed up really well, and guys knew what they were doing, and the offensive line executed. If you can get the offensive line to execute, Mac Jones can produce at the level Jared Goff did. And this Patriots defense is going to be better than that Lions defense was last year because they're much better coach. The coaching I feel much better about the coaching staff on this team this year than I did last year.
Agreed.
And I don't know how good this team is going to be, but I feel so much better about what the floor is.
100%.
They also had some really bad. If we told you before last season that the Matt Patricia experiment is going to go as poorly as it possibly could have, you're basically going to feel like you're playing with 4 offensive linemen for most of the season, and Mac Jones is going to get hurt and miss 3 weeks in there, almost a month of the season. And then you you finished 1 game out of the playoffs. You're going to be like, oh, that's not too bad.
Right. And that's the thing. You put stuff into perspective, and it actually sounds a little bit better than it was, So before we move on to the draft, because we are going to do that, but I just wanted to point out Thad Skywalker here is talking about how his brother really wants Brady to go to the Dolphins, which I think is hilarious. If Brady went to the Dolphins, I think that would be, I'd hate it, but I think it would be funny.
Then
it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But
the one I do worry about with Miami is Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Because he has previously liked tweets about wanting to play in Miami.
And also Miami would be stupid. Like, every team in the league is stupid for not going after Lamar. We've already had this conversation. But, if you think you're close, what are you doing? Just give up the draft picks for Lamar Jackson. What's wrong with you?
The fact that nobody went after it, I think, says a lot about what the contract demands were.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Lamar hasn't been healthy the last 2 seasons, and he's a guy who relies on his legs. I'm not I don't really think Lamar is more injury prone than anybody else. I think he's really good at protecting his body and has mostly gotten unlucky with his injuries.
Right.
And he's also a guy where he relies on his athleticism more than most quarterbacks. It's a really big part of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And if he loses his legs at all, if he loses his speed, he goes from being an elite quarterback and a game changer to Tyler Huntley in some ways.
Right.
And nobody wants to get caught paying $200 million guaranteed to that guy when you can't get out of it. So we'll see how those negotiations end up going. But in Miami, he's way better than Tua. Miami should be in on that. And that's not a well-run organization, as we can see by the fact that they don't have a first-round pick this year.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the draft because we don't want to spend too long here. But I thought the Rodgers thing was interesting that it finally got completed today. And again, I just thought the Austin Gale summed it up so perfectly, where he said, it was a great trade by the Packers, and the Jets didn't get fleeced. They made a good trade too. It really was one of those trades where it works out on both sides. But again, if you're a Packers fan, you're walking away today saying, hey, man, we moved up in the draft this year and got a second round pick and got a first round pick next year. Like, we're okay with that. Now we can build around Jordan Love, And so it is going to be interesting. I do think people said, well, they jumped the Patriots so they'd have a better shot at drafting JSN. I think that's stupid, in my opinion. Now, listen, who knows what's going to happen? But I think that was kind of silly. I think maybe they're looking for an offensive tackle, and they thought if we can jump in front of the Patriots, we can get an offensive tackle. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if any of that was in their mind. I just think that they wanted to get as much value out of the trade as they could. So they figure, well, let's move up a few spots. It gives us some leverage at 13. And at the very least, what happens if a quarterback's dropping and a quarterback's dropping and a quarterback's dropping? And they get to 13, and now the Packers are sitting at 13. They're not drafting a quarterback. But they might say, you know what? Yeah, the Patriots might have traded out at 14, but guess what? I'm going to trade with you here at 13 instead of at 14. And so now they take the trade the Patriots would have taken for Team X to come up and draft Will Levis at 13 or whoever it is that drops to 13, right? And so that would have been the guy that the Patriots had made that move for, right? So it's just one of those things where it gives you more flexibility. I don't know if there's a guy necessarily that they are zeroed in on. But it's if you can draft at 13, why wouldn't you draft at 13 instead of 15? It's like, it doesn't really matter who the guy is. You know what I mean?
Get as much value as you can out of it. And I don't know what Green Bay is looking at, but I like what we saw from Jordan Love in limited time last year. I thought looked pretty good. And I think Green Bay is in a position too where they can just kind of take the best player available, whoever they think it is, and run with it. Another note, and I think this applies to the Patriots too. This applies to 13, 14, and 15. I don't remember who it was. Somebody gave a quote today about them not even having 15 first-round grades in this class, and that's something I've seen a lot all over the place about this draft. It's weak at the top, and I think that plays into whoever the Patriots are going to draft at 14. A lot of times, typically there's 20 to 25 players that receive a first round grade on the draft boards of NFL teams, which means if you pick at 15 like the Patriots did 2 years ago, you're guaranteed a guy who you have as a first round pick. I don't know if that's the case this year, and that means that the Patriots may be basically just picking anybody from the second tier, and like they're going to be on their second tier of their draft board, which is kind of, I think, what happened last year. Cole Strange was probably the top guy on the second tier of their draft board. And you get to where they picked, and that's why it looks weird, because some boards may have somebody at 50, but it's not that big of a gap from 50 to 40, where somebody might be on somebody's board, and that might be the same tier, and these things. Teams like make a list and say, this is how the order we're picking the players in. Like there's a lot more like grouping to it. So that's where what it might come down to is, like we talk about Zay Flowers, like it might be the Patriots might have Zay Flowers as a second rounder, which I think a lot of teams do based on what's being read, and he might be the best player on their board at 14 when that pick comes around.
Right.
That's where moving from 15 to 13 can be valuable, because 13 might be a spot you can get a first round grade and you can't at 15. Which applies, that's Jets and Packers.
Correct. And I think it's going to be a question of who do you want? What are you looking at? Who is on your board? And look, yeah, maybe there aren't 15 first round grades. That's fine. But guess what? Maybe a team doesn't have CJ Stroud as a first round grade. Maybe they don't have Will Levis or Anthony Richardson as a first round grade. Those guys are going in the top 15 more than likely. And so even if you don't have 15 first round grades, the guys that you have at first round grades may not all be gone by the time you get to 14 or 15, right? And so that's the other part of it, is that, hey, I might only have 10 guys that are first round grades, but not all 10 of those guys are guaranteed to be drafted in the first 13 picks, right? And so even if you're sitting there at 14, you might say, hey, this guy shouldn't be around, but he is. And so, let's kind of see what happens. Now, what I find interesting about this, and everyone talks about the trade back and trade back and trade back. And listen, I'm as guilty of anyone. I did 7 mock drafts with the Patriots, right, on Pat's pulpit. On the majority of them, I traded back, right? Because that's what you kind of see the Patriots doing. The Patriots, typically, if they're drafting in the top 15 or the top 20 even, they don't usually trade back if they're in the top 20. As a matter of fact, 2003, they had the 14th overall pick. Okay? They had the 14th overall pick.
Ty Warren?
Thanks to the Buffalo Bills. But Ty Warren wasn't drafted 14th overall. He was drafted 13th overall because the Patriots took that pick, added a 6th-round pick, and jumped up to 13 to draft Ty Warren. And so it becomes one of those things where you look at it and say, hey, not only are we at 14, not only are we drafting here at 14, but we might actually give something to go up, right? And I think, and I don't necessarily know that that's going to happen in this situation, but I just think everyone is kind of looking at it and saying the Patriots are definitely trading back. And again, I'm as guilty as anyone, right? I've said it a million times. I think they're going to trade back, and I think it makes sense for them to trade back based on what the board looks like. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they're sitting there at 14 saying, our guy is still there. We're taking him. Or our guy is still there at 12. Let's package one of these 4th-round picks and a 5th round next year and go get him, right? Because he's sitting there. We can go up there and go get him. And so I think that for me, that's kind of the way that they plan things out where, you know, and look, they trade back a bunch too. In that same 2003 draft, they had, I think their pick was 19 was their pick that year. They traded 19 away to Baltimore and picked up a 2003 1st-round pick. I'm sorry. They traded that pick for 41 that year and a 2004 1st-round pick, which turned out to be Vince Wilfork. Obviously worked out pretty well. Yeah, but they had already had a 1st-round pick. So they didn't mind trading out of the 2nd round and getting a 1st-round pick back. And, you know, and then it was like, what's funny about that is that then you try to follow this is where I always love like drafting this stuff, because you look at it and you're like, okay, what did they do with that? Then then they're at 41 and they trade up from 41 to 36 and they draft Eugene Wilson, and you're trying to follow then it's like you're going down the rabbit hole trying to follow all the things, right? So, but it's just
all turned into
right. And so that's one of those things, but that's what they always do. They're moving around and they're okay moving around, but what people don't realize, and I don't think they get enough credit for it, is that they move up almost as much as they move back, because they focus on a guy and they go get him, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too, like they'll move up later in the draft. I could see them moving up in the 2nd round. They don't have anything in the 5th round. I could see them taking 2 of their 6ths and going up. Like they got a lot of 4ths, so they can trade up 4ths. They can trade up or back with some of those. I think the thing that makes it difficult is that if they're there at 14, and like if you pick at 19, and I don't know why you can move up to 14 unless somebody falls. We'll have to see if somebody does fall, and that's where this becomes an issue for the Patriots. Because we're saying we'd love them to trade back. I'm sure there's a lot of other teams that feel that way right now, and if that's how we all feel, who's interested in moving up? Who's the buyer? And I feel like that's also, as Patriot fans, we have to be prepared for that situation where, hey, maybe the team does want to move back. Nobody's interested for the right price. They end up taking the guy they would have been okay taking at 25 if they traded back. They just take him at 14 because they like him, whoever that is. And that's where you get draft picks that look kind of weird. But it's like, all right, if you go in thinking this guy's the best guy on our board at this point, or this is a guy we feel comfortable taking at 25, you got to be also okay taking him at 14. If that's how the board falls and that's how the value falls out, you got to trust your evaluations. And like that's how you get the Cole Strange pick last year, one that looks weird to everybody else, but you end up at a spot where it's just the best fit on your board. And I don't know, the media is not in these rooms. The media doesn't do the interviews like this team, like the Patriots are doing. They're usually pretty good at this, and I'm not going to overreact to a pick that looks weird on draft tonight, because this stuff is very complicated, and the difference between pick 14 and 34, even 44 this year, it's probably not that significant.
Yeah. Well, and you know what it comes down to, and I still think what happened was strange, and of course, nobody knows. I don't know. No one in the media knows, you know, but what I think happened is that they traded back to 29. They picked up an extra pick. Great. They were happy about that. They wanted to trade back again because they figure we can draft Cole Strange a little bit later than 29, but either there's no one to trade back with, right? Like in your situation, or the people that they want to trade up with them are in the 40s. And it's like, well, are we going to get Cole Strange if we go to the 40s? Maybe, but maybe not. And then we're going to have to move back up again after we move back to the 40s. It's like, are we getting enough back to make that worth it? It was just, it turns out to be, this is the guy. What are we doing? Just draft him. Like, you know what I mean? And so, and I think
Don't
that's
overthink
kind of,
it.
exactly. And if you're sitting there at 14 and you can't, if you love Zay Flowers, and I'm not saying Zay Flowers is the guy, but let's just say they love Zay Flowers. All right, they're getting offers from 25. 25 wants to move up to 14 and draft a quarterback. I don't even know who the hell is at 25. It doesn't matter, right? 25 wants to move up and draft a quarterback at 14. Great, fine. Hey, that's awesome. We can pick up an extra second-round pick and maybe even something more than that. Awesome. But will Zay Flowers still be around at 25? And so is it worth it to get those extra picks if it means, hey, Zay is the third, we had JSN and Zay as our top two, right? We got them there as our top two. JSN's gone. Zay Flowers is there. If we move back to 25, Zay's probably gone. Are we okay with that? And then you kind of square those things and say, yeah, no, we're taking them. And maybe we think 14's a little early, but we do it anyways. And so I just think that, so much of those things go into it and people don't appreciate that they just think, well, you can just, I don't know who you trade. Just trade back with, 18 or whatever. Like I traded with the Lions. Why the Lions went to 15? I don't know. Who cares? Like what? Yeah. So it's just one of those things,
Yeah, and it's like don't let the fact that somebody is number 35 on a media big board mean that them getting picked at 14 or 15 or wherever in the teens. Like it doesn't mean it's a mistake. When they make these boards, typically, like think about it in tiers. Don't think about it in lists. That's the way to do it. There's going to be one chunk of guys that'll go in the first 10 to 15 picks. Another chunk that's going to go from 15 to 40, usually something like that, and then 40 to 75. Like that's how you get a Tyquan Thornton last year.
Yep.
It's just he's in that same tier as everybody else, and you're picking the one you like the most out of that. So yeah, I want to highlight a comment in here. I'm going back for a second, but Thaddeus Skywalker had said, what if the Pats trade back into the first round to take a tight end after the 14th pick and then trade Hunter Henry before the end of the draft? I like the thinking. I don't think they have to trade up to do this. And I'll tell you why. I think this tight end class is incredibly deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can find good tight ends in the second and third round. I think history has shown you can just kind of take whoever you like the most at 46 or 76 or whatever. If they like the tight ends, especially in a class like this, and you're going to have odds that are as good as the ones you traded up in the first round, and you're giving up more cap space and more draft picks to make that move happen. And also Hunter Henry. I think you can move on from Hunter Henry next year. I don't think you do that before you get into camp. He's the most experienced inline tight end on this roster. He is good. Is he worth his money? Probably not, but he's better than the next guy, and I think you want to hold on to him for now for that reason. He's also a good locker room guy. If you draft a tight end, you get into camp and you think this kid can start right away because he's that good, then yeah. But Gesicki's not an inline tight end, and you get rid of Henry now, and you basically have no blocking options whatsoever if the rookie you draft doesn't work out.
Right. That's a good point. It's a good point. And Team Crazy Matt here with a great thing. By the way, Thad was saying the Vikings are 25. Team Crazy Matt was saying the Giants are 25. The Giants are 25. The Vikings are 24. Though, I'm sorry, they're 23, though they could be the 24th team because Miami's not actually picking. It's a whole thing. Anyways, but Team Crazy Matt, what worries me if the Patriots are targeting Flowers is the Chiefs making a massive move from 30 to hop New England, 31, I'm sorry, to hop New England to get to him. Detroit moving from 32 to 12 for Jameson Williams last year. Hey, look, that could certainly happen. And if that happens and they package together some crazy deal to get him, then it sucks for the Patriots. But like it is what it is. And then that becomes a situation where if they're moving up to 11 to draft Zay Flowers, you're on the phone. You're pounding the phone line. Hey, 11, you're on the clock. I don't even know who the hell. It doesn't matter who the teams are. 11, you're on the clock. If you get a call. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the Titans. So J-Rob's not there anymore, but it doesn't matter. Regardless, right? You call Tennessee and you're like, hey, look, I know Is it Monty? No, Monty's in Arizona. Forget it. But Monty was in Tennessee. You call Tennessee and you say, hey, look, if you get a call from Kansas City and they're trying to move up to 11, I know they're going to give you stuff. But let us know. Let us know because we'll move up with you. And then you can only move back 3 picks.
And I'm sure that the groundwork for this is being laid this week, right now or last week. This is that time where you call around and you say, hey, if you get any calls from this team, let us know because we're also going to be interested in moving up if this team calls you. And you kind of start spreading some of that stuff. We'll see. And I also think like you got to know your limit because I'm willing to trade up for Zay Flowers if that's where it comes to. I'm not giving up the farm for Zay Flowers when Jordan Addison is in this draft, who's also a very good prospect. Or you just go in a different direction. You can get a good offensive lineman, or you can get a tight end if you want to go there, or a corner, or whatever it is. I love Zay Flowers. I'd love to see him in New England, not married to him. You can go in different directions here and don't fall too in love with any one prospect because that's how you start making really bad decisions and giving up way too much for guys who are incredibly unproven.
100%. 100%. And I think that's kind of what you have. I do love the fact that, and that's talking about the draft speculation. And that to me is my favorite part of it too. The anticipation. Today we hear, Paris Johnson's thought of a lot highly than other people think. Devin Witherspoon is thought of a lot highly than other people think. They're going to be drafted higher than people think. Kyler Murray is talking about Paris Johnson. He loves Paris Johnson. Oh my God, what? Who's leaking that information? You know what I mean? Like, who is that? Is that the agents that are leaking that information? Is that the Cardinals that are trying to get some stuff out there? Is that someone that's drafting at 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever, right? That's trying to get someone to get up and say, we got to go get this guy, right? Or maybe it's the Texans. Hey, Paris Johnson, look at Arizona. He's talking about drafting Paris Johnson. But hey, if you trade up with us, we'll move back and you could draft Paris Johnson number 2. So it's like it's all games at this point, right? You can listen to all that stuff and you can hear all of it and all the rumors that are flying about this and about that. But that to me it's so much fun because you don't know. And every year, someone pulls something crazy, right? And you're going to be sitting there like, what are you doing making that trade? But they're going to do it. And they're going to go. Last year, in my opinion, it was Tennessee. Tennessee trades A.J. Brown for 18 overall. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you starting again with Treylon Burks? You have A.J. Brown. What are you doing? Right? And it's just like, and so sometimes, sometimes you see some stuff like that and you're like, this is crazy, that they would do something like that. But then that's what happens. And so in the draft, man, that's why the NFL draft is so much fun. And it's different than all the other drafts because the NBA draft, if you're not in the top 5 or 10, you stink or you're overseas. The MLB and the NHL draft, those guys are 4 or 5 years away from playing most times, right? And the NFL draft, those guys can step in day one and play. And sometimes you're Mr. Irrelevant and, your team loses in the playoffs because you get hurt.
You start in the NFC Championship. Yeah.
Right.
I do want to circle back here, too, to Thad Skywalker, because I also don't want to completely dismiss his suggestion either. I go back 2 years where the Pats traded up to get Christian Barmore, and that trade was from 46 to 38. They gave up 2/4 to do that, and they're at 46 again this year, and they got 3/4, so they can move ones around if they want to. So if there is, let's say they get whoever they want at 14, then they can trade up and get somebody else if somebody else they like falls. When we could see who that is, I feel like that's totally possible here. And I think you're right. The Pats are going to move around the board. They got 11 picks right now. Yeah. They're not making 11 picks this weekend. That's not happening. They only have room for, I think, 4 undrafted free agents. That's no. Right. So they're going to consolidate some of these and package them to move up. They're definitely going to trade some of them back to move into future drafts. We'll give you a 6th if you give us the 7th this year and your 6th the year after. Right. Those type of moves. And I'm sure they're going to keep that rolling into the future. I also think this team needs some special teams help, and I keep doing it in my mocks, but they got to work with Jake Moody and Michael Turk at the Shrine Bowl. Both of
Yep.
those guys are highly regarded. If they like both of them, they're going to have the opportunity to take them. Don't be surprised if this team trades up from the 6th into the 5th for a punter, and we're going to sit here and get all excited. Pat's traded up. It's going to be for a punter or a kicker, and we're all like, "What just happened?" And then we're going to get to like week 9, and whoever it is going to make a clutch kick or punt, and it's going to be all right. Yeah, I forgot. Like Bill does know what he's doing.
Right. And that's one of those things it makes it so unpredictable, and especially when you're a fan of the Patriots, because you have no idea what they're going to do, and they're always flying around the draft board, and they're always making trades, and they're always talking to everyone, right? And so one of the interesting things. So my final mock draft came out for Pat's Pulpit this morning. I had them trading back in the first. And again, it's funny. I mentioned Detroit because they traded back with Detroit in my mock 18 and 81. They got and drafted Myles Murphy in the first round. Here's the deal, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, as you're listening, go on to FanDuel, go on to DraftKings. Oh, that's a nice little segue. Official now. We can officially roll it out on the podcast.
There it is.
All right. Pats Nation, go to DraftKings, download the DraftKings app. If you're a new member, put in the promo code Pats Nation, all one word, Pats Nation. If you put a $5 bet down, win or lose, you get $150 in bonus bets. $150 in bonus bets. Promo code Pats Nation with DraftKings. Okay, go on to DraftKings. Download the app, go on to DraftKings, and go to futures and just look at the draft. Don't put your money on corner. Don't put your money on wide receiver. Go put your money on. Go put your money on. Well, you couldn't, but go put your money on defensive lineman. Go put your money on linebacker. Defensive lineman, you get like plus 2,000 odds at this point, right? So put your money on something crazy. Because don't be surprised if Bill Belichick takes a D tackle or an edge. Don't be surprised if he does it. Jalen Carter has got there's some issues going on. If Jalen Carter drops a little bit, which I don't think he's gonna, but if he drops a little bit, maybe Belichick moves up to 12 and takes him. Maybe Belichick moves up to 11 with the Titans and takes him. Who knows, right? They might, but they might not, right? So I think it's just fascinating. That's a fascinating part of it. And again, if you're going to put the money down, sprinkle a little money here and there, do whatever you want. But to me, it's like, well, what the heck? You might as well bet on the crazy ones because it's the Patriots.
Have some fun with it. And bet on Jake Moody being a Patriot.
Oh, I don't
think I've done a mock draft this year without Jake Moody. He's a really good kicker with a big leg from a school they've drafted a lot of guys from who they got to work with in person.
Right. Well, that's what makes
I like Nick Folk, but he ain't the guy.
I know. That's what's made doing my mocks tough because I can't ever draft the same guy again. So it's like I'm like, what other? So I drafted Noah Ruggles in one of them, but then I'm like, I can't draft another kicker. And every time I put one out, people are like, oh, how come you draft a kicker? And I'm like, well, I already drafted the 2 kickers I want. What do you want me to do? I can't draft another one. And so he's not a 3%er, John. Stop it. But it's interesting. And look, Thad, you're not wrong. We do need an offensive tackle or a cornerback more than an edge. You're not wrong about that. However, I would argue that if you draft another edge that can get after the quarterback, you need a corner less than you do right now. Right. And so,
I think the other part of this too is like, yeah, they could use an offensive tackle or corner if they're good. If they don't think the prospects there are good, why are you going to just draft for need to have a player at edge over a bad player at another position? Like that's, and I do think this draft is really deep for corner too. And I think all the guys at the top have their warts. I think offensive tackle is warts at the top of the depth isn't good. They've got a lot of offensive tackle depth right now. I don't know if the offensive tackles they have are good, but they have more mediocre ones than they did last year, and that's something. I think they can not draft a tackle in this draft and feel okay with it. You'll have to do some stuff next offseason, but that's next offseason. Corner, a corner at 14 makes sense. A tight end at 14, you could argue makes sense. both of those are positions where I think you can find starters on day 2 or day 3 even. They did it last year. So I wouldn't hate the pick if they do it high, but I think I'm only doing it if I don't love other guys.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to is what's on the board, what do you see? And look, positions are important, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, positions are there and it's positions of need. But and we've talked about this a million times, I feel like this offseason. They've set themselves up with this offseason. They've set themselves up so they're not in a position where they have to look at it and say, we don't have a choice. We have to draft this position. You don't have to do that anymore. Right. And I think that's huge. And so, we'll see what they do. Who knows? But I think it's fun to kind of take a look at what happens. And I do think there is some depth at offensive tackle. It's not great depth, but there is some depth there. I think there's a little bit of depth at wide receiver, more than people are giving them credit for. And I know that guys have warts, and I know none of those guys are perfect. But I do think if you draft a 3rd, 4th, 5th round wide receiver, that guy might come through and be a good player for you.
Well, I think wide receiver is a position they can double dip at for sure with the way the depth chart looks right now. And the way I see it, between wide receiver and tight end, you probably want to add 3 bodies there between the draft and undrafted guys. Offensive tackle, you probably want to add a body if you can. At least one offensive lineman. Then you can go center. David Andrews is getting up there. Look at Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas, a guy they worked with at the Shrine Bowl. Just a name I'm going to throw out there. Steen, John Limbarakis brings that up in the chat. By the way, go follow John on Twitter. He does some awesome clip stuff. He mentioned Steen there from Alabama. Just a super easy fit. So, this draft is interesting at 14. I want to see what the Patriots do, but they can get 3 or 4 starters on days 2 and 3, guys who can really be an impact. And I don't know, you want to nail round 1, but I feel like it's more you have to nail round 1. If you don't nail round 1, you're going to be in a tough spot. It's
100%.
Nailing days 2 and 3 where you become a contender. And also, I'll circle back to Edge. Edge isn't a need right now, but Uche's contract expires at some point. Judon's not the youngest guy in the world, and we've seen him have stamina issues. And you can never have too many pass rushers. You need to have 2 on the field at all times, basically, especially in the AFC East with Aaron Rodgers in it. And if Uche or Judon goes down, they don't have a ton of depth there. So drafting an edge guy makes a ton of sense.
Right. I agree. And Thad asked about what Alabama we're taking. John says Tyler Steen. Jordan Battle, that's a good one. I think Cadlick. I was going to say Cadlick in this one had the Patriots trading back and drafting Brian Branch in the 1st round. I have them in this last mock. I have them taking Henry To'oTo'o, who I don't know if he's a great fit, but I do think the Patriots like him. And so he's a guy that you can get in the 4th round or so at that, and it's a kind of a true middle linebacker.
Yeah. And I would stay away from Cameron Lott too. There's a lot of tight ends in this draft, but the rumor was the tight end from North Dakota State, whose name is escaping me.
Oh, it's hold on, Gindorf, Noah Gindorf.
No.
North Dakota State.
Am I mixing up my schools here? It's not okay. Well, it's not Gindorf, so I'm mixing.
Is it South Dakota State? Tucker Kraft.
Yes, that's exactly who it is. I mix the 2 of those up all the time. Rumor is that Alabama tried to woo him away this past offseason to get him to play there. And if that's true, that means Bill O'Brien preferred this guy to Cameron Latu. They're both supposed to be around the same spot in the draft. So I think that tells you which one they would pick if that's the case. I don't think Latu is a pat.
Well, there you go. I like it. Okay. So there you go. So that's it. I think we're done. Here. We've been going for a while. Oh, wait a second. One thing forgot to mention it.
Oh.
Tune in. Okay. My bag rattled in the background, but tune in Thursday night. There's the draft hat right there. Okay. Here's all you got to do. Patriots draft hat. Look at that. Sick, dude. Look at the new arrow on this side. You got the red. I love the red logo. Looks so sick. So tune in to round 1. Okay. If you're there on Thursday and you're following us or you're subscribed to our either on the YouTube or on the Twitch. Either one's fine. Whatever one, we got some Twitch people out there too. So subscribe on the YouTube or on the Twitch or both. Why not both? You could do both. But if you subscribe to either one and you just make a comment on there, I know some guys in the ScoSo chat are hell-bent on commenting that they hate us because I mentioned you could say that, and I'm okay with that. I don't care. Comment anything.
You know what? If you Venmo us, you might get a better chance.
See, there you go. Or you just throw a dad joke in the chat, and maybe I'll give you 2 entries for the dad joke. If I like it, if I like the dad joke. But nevertheless, okay, come on, make a comment. We'll throw your names into a hat, and we'll just choose one at random. Towards, maybe not, I don't know about towards the end, but like after the Patriots pick, once all the kind of commotion has died down a bit, we'll go from there. Quick maths also work, Dark Blue Gold, although your European is coming out with your quick maths as opposed to quick maths, but yeah, it's okay. We'll forgive you. But yes, come on, make a comment on the stream, and someone is winning a free hat. I'll mail it out to whoever it is. I don't care. If I got to mail it out to Europe, I'll mail it out to Europe. It doesn't matter to me. So
do some quick maths on how much that postage is going to cost.
Yes, and I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with it. I'm fine. I don't care. So yeah. So we'll go from there. So tune in Thursday night. We'll be live all night long. All night. Like literally all night long from 8 o'clock until whenever pick number 32 comes out. We have a million guests coming on, a ton of people coming through, people in Patriots media. We got guys from other teams coming through. We got, just friends of the show, people that, man, we got everyone. Everyone's coming on Thursday night. So come through, hang with us, listen to us, have some fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah, so it's gonna be good. I've been watching the stream for a while. I finally get to be on it.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's year 3 for me. I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about doing it.
I feel like I'm gonna have to order myself some wings Thursday night and eat them during the show. Maybe have a beer or two on there.
It's a good idea.
We'll see how that ends up going.
I like it. Just shut your camera off when you're eating the wings, because man, that's a little too much.
Well, I think we'll give the people a show.
So, well, anyways, thanks.
You can, if you don't like watching me eat the wings, you can pay me to turn off my camera. We'll do it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. Now we're just asking people to pay us for things. We don't even know how they're going to pay you.
we need the tip jar on Twitch.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. So we'll have we'll set up a Patreon just so you can pay Matt to stop eating. So anyways, that's what we got. That's it. That's all we got. We're off the rails. Tune in Thursday night. We're super excited about it. It's gonna be a great time. Tons of people stopping in. So make sure you're there. We appreciate you guys as always. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you Thursday night. The draft is finally here. It's freaking here. After so long, it's here. And I'm very excited about it. All right, guys. We'll see you.
Have a good night.